This ought to be it. This ought to be interesting.
I'm trying to keep.
Oh, okay.
How are you? But I'm not sure I can use it. Dark six should be still on, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'll just live then.
Tell me on your phone, just. Sounds good, Paul.
Okay, very good.
You won't be involved. Stop.
Yeah, I kind of feel far away.
All right, I think we have everything in order. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our Graham County Board of Supervisors meeting here this April 4th at 8 a.m. If you would stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, joining us today on the line is Supervisor David, taking some unusual time away, but well deserved, and we're glad that he can, and we're glad that you're on the line, Paul. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, the first item on our agenda today is the need to approve the minutes of the regular meeting and work session held on April 21st.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, we have a first and a second by Supervisor David, and I'll make that unanimous. First up, we have Mr. Brian Douglas from our Health Department. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. The Arizona State WIC program is recommending that at least one WIC employee from each county be represented at the National WIC Association Conference this May in New Orleans. And this conference educates our WIC employees on public health, nutrition education, nutrition foods, and so on. And it will also help with our continuing education credit hours. And we would like to send Renee Maldonado from our WIC program to represent Graham County. And funds for this will be paid through the WIC program. And unfortunately, we still have to fill our registered dietitian position, and so because of that, we do have additional funds to spend.
All right, thank you. Whenever we have travel out of state, we have a rule that it's approved by the board, and so that's why it's on the agenda whenever there's travel out of state. Any questions on this for Mr. Douglas? Do I hear a...
Chairman,
yes.
Mr. Chairman, Paul David, I just would note that for the public who are attending, this is funded by the state with funding. It's not coming out of the county cost, so it makes it easy to approve.
Yep. Thank you, Supervisor David. If anyone couldn't hear that, that was Supervisor David was saying that funding comes through the WIC program also. Thank you, Supervisor David. Do I have a first or a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the travel for Renee Maldonado to attend the National WIC Association Conference in New Orleans.
And I'll second Supervisor Howard's motion.
All right, thank you. I'll make that unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On our second item, our health department's teen pregnancy program teaches TOPS curriculum to students at the Safford Middle School as well as the Safford High School. And part of the program, it includes a 20-hour community service project. And this year, our students would like to have 2 inspirational murals painted on the walls of the Safford Middle School as well as the high school. And our students contacted Brant Woods, who's a local mural artist, and would like to hire him to paint the 2 murals. And his quote for both murals is $9,000. And the students would design the mural, and then he would go ahead and paint one at the middle school and one at the high school. We do have additional monies within the TOPS program to actually fund these murals, and which would pay Brant Woods. And we've already spoken with the principals of the middle school and high school, and they have approved this. And it's requested that the board approve this, or this item, or this event.
All right, thank you, Brian. Just one question. If there is the funding and this is the purpose, it's one of the allowable purposes for the money, why is this one, how did this particularly come to our agenda? Why would?
Oh, because it wasn't mentioned on our original, it wasn't an original budget item.
Okay.
For the fiscal 2021-22 budget.
Anything over 2,500, which would be capital, that wasn't approved in the preliminary budget, we bring to the board for approval.
Okay. All right, any questions or thoughts, questions for Mr. Douglas, and/or I'll entertain a motion?
Brian, where was this gonna be painted at? Do they have a site for it already, or?
I'm not for sure. I just know somewhere at the middle school and somewhere at the high school.
Supervisor David has no questions. I will make a motion to approve the teen pregnancy program mural.
No, and I'll second that, Supervisor Howard's motion.
All right, thank you. Thank you. We have a first and a second. I'll make that unanimous.
Okay, and we just have, thank you. And we have one more item. Our detention facility and the health department would like to utilize the services of the community medical services to provide medication-assisted treatment and counseling to detained pregnant women suffering from opioid use disorder. And our procedures for this would be that the CMS would provide pre-measured doses of methadone and oral concentrate to our detention center medical unit, and then one of our nurses would then administer the medication to our inmate. And during this entire time that the pregnant inmate would be under the supervision of our contracted physician. And it's requested that the board approve this agreement.
All right. Any further questions for Mr. Douglas?
I think I'm clear on this, that they will, we are not actually administering the dosage, the service will be administered, or do we oversee it? How's that work?
Right, that CMS would actually provide the medication and then dose it and then drop it off at our medical unit. And then one of our nurses would then administer that pre-measured dose to that inmate. And then as well, this historically, this would occur 1 to 2 times per year. So it's not a weekly occurring thing.
All right, thank you.
Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Paul David with the comment and 3 questions. One is, just from an optics for the casual person who's not aware of the MAT program, to county to approve of giving pregnant women addictive drugs in prison. It doesn't sound good, but truthfully, this is very humane, and I'm pleased that we don't have to transfer the people to Maricopa County to receive it. The question is to Brian, is that was there more than one provider available, because we've chosen one? Number 2 is it says that the treatment will begin within 36 hours of being diagnosed with an addiction, and for people who were going cold turkey or people who are withdrawing, 36 hours can seem like forever. And then my last question is, it says that the county will not be billed. There will be no cost to the county, but I'm assuming that they recover the cost from access or private insurance if that's available. So I'll go ahead and listen to the responses.
Right. On your first question, as of one provider, CMS is the only provider locally that does prescribe methadone. With our clinicians and our contracted physicians and so on, that they are not certified to actually prescribe methadone, and CMS is. As well as CMS in other counties have agreements with their detention facilities to administer methadone as well. So yes, that CMS is really our only local provider. Secondly, as of the 36-hour mark, that's primarily our main concern was weekends, and that is the maximum amount of time before CMS would actually administer this drug or prescribe it. But it's our intentions to actually have this done in a much sooner time period than 36 hours. Hopefully within the main, within 24 hours at least. Jean, I'm sorry, I don't want to bring you into this, but Jean was instrumental in helping to draft this.
I think that I think the intent is that it will get done when it can get done, but that 36 hours is the outside time frame.
Right.
Outside of the weekend. So I don't want to say that it will be done faster than that, because they have 36 hours to do it. It's also my understanding that we can prescribe just over-the-counter or minimal prescription medication to keep the person comfortable in between the time period that they're there and they are administered the first dose of the oral concentrate.
Right, and that we would just treat symptoms of the withdrawal, and that's normally vomiting, diarrhea, things of that sort. But it's my understanding that with pregnant women that if they're treated within this period of time, that it is safe. And then what was the third question, Paul?
The no cost to the county.
Right, there is no cost. I believe there is some grant that CMS operates under that pays for their services as well as medication. And whether it's access or some kind of an opioid grant, I'm not for sure.
All right, thank you, Brian.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the contract with CMS for their MAT services for the pregnant women who have opioid addiction at our facilities.
And I'll second that.
All right, I'll make that unanimous. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, next up, Mr. Dustin Welker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you're very well aware, Graham County belongs to an insurance risk pool with 12 other counties. All counties other than Maricopa and Pima County belong to a risk pool called Arizona County's Insurance Pool. This pool provides the county property, fidelity, employment, employer's liability, workers' compensation, liability losses, and so forth to these 13 counties. Our last agreement with them was 10 years ago. It expires in 2022. This risk pool has been a tremendous benefit to Graham County as well as the other counties, and we certainly wish to continue on with ACIP, is what we call them, Arizona County's Insurance Pool. So what we have before you is a recommendation to re-up on this contract for another 10 years. And we strongly recommend approving this IGA.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments, or do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the IJ with the Arizona County's Insurance Pool for 10 years.
And I'll second that motion, and I'll also note that Dustin Walker attends meetings, and it's for us easy to. That's usually a monthly meeting for him, sometimes many hours. So appreciate his representing the county and on ACIP.
Thank you, Supervisor David.
All right. All right, we have a first and a second. I'll make that unanimous. Next up, we have the reading and approval of a National Association for the Education of Young Children Week of the Young Child Proclamation. I believe we have someone here that would like to speak on that. Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So first things first is here with us today, Ned Griffin and Sherry Elkins are in the audience, and they presented this proclamation to us, and I'd defer to them and turn over the time to tell us what it's about and read the proclamation for us.
Thank you. Good morning, supervisors. It's a privilege to be here with you this morning as you recognize the importance of Graham County's youngest citizens. My name is Ned Griffin. This is Sherry Elkins, and we are here representing First Things First, which is Arizona's early childhood organization. And you may or may not know that First Things First is actually a state agency. We operate on a very creative funding source, that is tobacco revenues. Each pack of cigarettes sold in the state of Arizona has an 85 cent tax on it, and 100% of those revenues go directly to early childhood. We have a very unique government structure in that we have volunteers all across the state. The state's divided into 28 regions. We're the Graham-Greenlee region, and each region has a volunteer board of 11 members who meet monthly and determine how those revenues are best spent in our counties. We are privileged to have on our board Dustin Welker and Donna McGoy, our county school superintendent, and other hardworking individuals who are invested and interested in the needs of our children here in Graham and Greenlee County. We know that 90% of a child's brain growth happens between birth and age 5 when they land on the doorstep at kindergarten. So it's critical that our young ones have quality early learning experiences in their homes and in their communities so they can get the best start in life. So the purpose for the Week of the Young Child is to focus public attention on the needs of our young children and their families while recognizing that the early years lay a foundation for success in school and later in life. It's also to pay tribute to the hardworking early childhood professionals who are out boots on the ground doing the work to help our little ones be prepared and give them the very best start to help them be healthy and ready to learn by the time they arrive at kindergarten. So I brought along some information for each of you today. Sherry's going to give you a bag, and in that bag there's a regional impact report which will tell you a little bit more about First Things First and the work that we're doing and how we're spending intentionally those hard-earned taxpayer dollars in our community. And there's also an invitation in there to our Mr. G concert, which is coming up this Thursday. He's actually a Latin Grammy award-winning artist. He's been all around the world, and we are just over the moon to have him here in Graham and Greenlee counties. The library's done a lot of hard work to get him here. We are maximizing his time while he's here. He's doing a free concert at the Safford Center for the Arts for the preschool and kindergarten population. We've invited all the kindergartners to be bussed in and attend this concert, and then there's one for first and second graders here also. He's also going to Morenci and providing his services there with the free concert, and he's doing a workshop for all the local teachers who are interested in attending that. So we are going to have a great time with Mr. G. It's free to the public, and it's been well advertised, and I hope that we're going to have good attendance there to help us celebrate the Week of the Young Child. Also in your bag is a community resource guide. I think that you've all seen those. We work really hard to keep a guide that has all the local numbers that can benefit families. There's information on housing and substance abuse and medical information, education. I've put these in the hands of law enforcement and medical professionals and clergy, and they're always very appreciative. They say these are numbers that we work hard to find when we need them, so it's good to have them all in one place. That's another thing that we do for the community. So we have lots of signature programs, and we're working really hard to make all the good things happen for our little ones in the community. I don't want to take any more of your time. The last thing in your bag is a children's book, and I never give you a children's book without a challenge to find a child to read it to. If you can't find a young child in your home or in your community, they're always looking for guest readers at the library. They'd love to have you come and share your services there. So with that, I will turn the time back over to you. I know there's nobody really wants to read this proclamation. I don't have it in front of me, but if you want me to read it, I will, or Dustin can read it, or Supervisor, one of you is welcome to read it. We would just love to have you read it and publicly proclaim April 2nd through the 8th, the Week of the Young Child in Graham County.
You bet. We're happy to do it.
Thank you.
I'll read the proclamation if you'll read that book in the library.
Okay. Sounds good.
National Association for the Education of Young Children, Week of the Young Child, Proclamation, Graham County Board of Supervisors. Whereas all young children deserve quality early learning environments that support them as capable and competent lifelong learners, and whereas nurturing, parenting, quality, and accessible childcare and early education programs build strong brains during the critical years from birth to age 5, and whereas investments in babies and young children has profound impacts on creating a strong and vibrant community, and whereas First Things First, Arizona Association of the Education of Young Children and other community organizations in conjunction with the National Association for the Education of Young Children are celebrating the 51st anniversary of the Week of the Young Child, and whereas these organizations are working to improve equitable learning, early learning opportunities that can provide a foundation of learning for children in Graham County, and whereas early childhood educators and others who make a difference in the lives of young children deserve thanks, recognition, and support, and whereas public policies that support early learning for all young children are crucial to Arizona's families, communities, and economy. Now, therefore, we, the Graham County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim April 2nd through the 8th, 2022 as the Week of the Young Child in Graham County, Arizona, and encourage all citizens to support and invest in early childhood education in our community. And I'll just add, Mr. Chairman, I have been on the board for First Things First for several years, and we're very well represented in Graham County and Greenlee by Sherry Elkins and Ned Griffin and their army of helpers and volunteers and people that just take this very passionately, and they do a fantastic job in the community, and I just want to publicly thank them. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Want to get a picture?
How about a picture?
Make a comment too, Dustin, real quick. I've been involved and attended quite a few meetings with Sherry and Annette, not as much, but I'm just amazed at your passion and what you guys do for our community. Very well done. Thank you.
Let's get a quick picture. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Well, you're in the picture too.
How do we take this? Yeah, I think so.
I'll make that motion to approve the National Association for Education of Young Children Week of the Young Child Proclamation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion. Who knows what I could have become if I'd been in first things first.
All right, thank you, Supervisor David. I'll make that unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have another proclamation. This one is the Fair Housing Proclamation. As you know, SEGO, Southeastern Arizona Government Organization, is basically our federal arm to Graham County and other counties in that region. And they have a number of programs that they help us with, transportation being probably the one that we pay attention to the most, but also fair housing is a big item on their list of responsibilities. This is in correlation with our CDBG grant, our Community Development Block Grant. As you're aware, this year we're going to be working out at the fairgrounds, providing handicap access to drinking fountains and playground equipment and other items. And this is a proclamation that SEGO has asked us to pass to be in compliance with their requirements and regulations. So that's kind of the foreground of this and why we've brought it to you here today.
All right, do we need to read that one?
Yes.
I'll let you read that one and then we'll take action.
Fair Housing Proclamation. Whereas the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Federal Fair Housing Act, and the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 prohibit discrimination in the sale, rental, leasing, and financing of housing or land to be used for the construction of housing or in the provision of brokerage services on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familiar status, or national origin. And whereas the 1968 and 1988 Federal Fair Housing Acts declare that it is a national policy to ensure equal opportunities in housing, and whereas April has traditionally been designated as Fair Housing Month in the United States. Now therefore, I, Danny Smith, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, do proclaim April as Fair Housing Month in Graham County, and do hereby urge all citizens of this community to comply with the letter and spirit of the Fair Housing Law. Signed this 4th day of April 2022.
All right, any comments, or I'll entertain a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the Fair Housing Proclamation.
Second by Supervisor David.
All right, thank you, Supervisor David. I'll make that unanimous. All right, next up on our agenda, we have a moment, we're in the meeting each time where members of the board and the county manager can present a brief summary of current events. No actions taken on these items. Supervisor Howard, would you like to go first?
Sure. On the 24th, I listened to a webinar, Senator Kelly, on congressional directed spending money, and this is very important to me, for I'm working on a project with the Gila Valley Irrigation District to get some funding for some upgrades to the canal system and some lining projects, leaky head gates, water conservation. So hopefully we can squeeze some money out of that somewhere. And then on the 25th, I was at the college and attended and heard the Arizona Corporation Commission chairman speak about some different items that affected us here locally. 28th broadband meeting that we're moving forward with, trying to get broadband into our area and more out to more of our citizens. And then on the 29th, I had an opportunity to virtually again have a meeting with Mrs. Lorraine Rivera, who is the governor's office liaison, who's was a very informative meeting and a good connection for us to communicate with the governor's office. And then on April 1st, I went to the monthly Republican meeting, and as we all know, the election's heating up and people are starting to come out of the woodworks everywhere, but we met with Carrie Lake. She's a candidate of the governor. Justin Olson, candidate for senator, and for their new congressional district 6, Juan Siscamani was there. So I encourage everyone to go and meet these folks on both party sides and vote wisely. That's the end of my report.
All right. Thank you. Supervisor David.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a note that always amazed at how active and effective that you and Supervisor Howard are, and I'm just trying to keep up with you. And thank you for letting me attend this meeting remotely.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor David. And County Manager Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just hit on a few things first that some of our departments are working on. Our highway department's working hard on processing fill dirt, compaction material out of our Barrow pit there south of town, and are beginning to construct the Swift Trail project, which is our big chip seal project this year. And our engineering department's also been out there helping them with grades and setting stakes and everything. So that project is underway, and we're hauling chips into a lot of different places, and we'll begin our chip seal in May. So we're gearing up for that. Our Parks Department did a great job hosting the Junior Rodeo a couple weekends ago, and the attendance was great. It was a big success, and they're very pleased with our fairgrounds. Just want to thank Trey and Jim and his crew for all their hard work, and I know the entire board attended at some point, and we appreciate that too, and I think it went pretty well. We also had opening day for Little League last weekend, and I didn't make it out there, but from all the posts, it looked like people were generally pretty happy with it, and we have those new fields out there with the clay dirt, and our guys built the mounds up and everything, and just really did a great job. Looked like they had a great attendance, and from all accounts so far, everyone is really pleased. Just lastly, a couple of things. We had a big meeting with all the other agencies in the valley to discuss our dispatch equipment. We're having big discussions as we're going through this big upgrade with Motorola, whether we want to make the jump from analog over to digital, which is a big conversation. We'll be bringing that to you in a work session at our next meeting to talk about that and cost related, and see if we can determine if there's a good cost benefit to that decision. And just lastly, we've been working very hard on the budgets, employee evaluations. Just want to thank all the departments, department heads, and elected officials. Those are again due April 6th. And this week we'll also be sending out our budget worksheets to get working on those to be prepared for the first week in May. We'll be having our budget hearings with the board. So here we go with budgets. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is when we pay our bills, we have a need to approve the demands and the handwritten warrants.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a first to approve the demands and handwritten warrants.
Seconded.
All right, we have a second from Supervisor David, and I'll make that unanimous. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing section of our agenda, and we have 5 items on that agenda today. Then following that, we have a bid opening after that. Steve McGoy, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the board and Mr. Manager.
Morning.
We do have 5 items here. They're all for a hearing for you to facilitate. And in case I fail to mention it in each individual presentation, all of these were unanimously recommended to bring you a favorable recommendation for passing each of these. The first one will be rezone 847-22. This is changed the current A zone to RR, which is what we used to call R20. It's a 20,000 square foot minimum half. It's called a buildable half acre. You'll see that a couple times here today. This particular one is, the requester is Sandra Judd. The situs address 951 South 400 East. It's basically at the corner of Judd Lane and Alma Lane. And this is a family situation. I don't see any of them here, but the intention is to move some of the property into the son's name and out of mom's name so that she doesn't have to pay the taxes on it, and just a rearrangement of property amongst a family. And no one came to speak for or against it at our meeting, and like I said, the commission unanimously voted to send a favorable recommendation to you guys.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here that wished to speak on that item that signed in? I don't see anyone. All right, any discussion, or do I hear a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman, one question for Roy.
Yes.
That is the existing septic system on the smaller parcel, or if we end up with a small parcel, do we have an assurance that that there'll be enough room and the conditions are suitable for septic system?
Yes, that the septic will be on the half acre. It's that part of the survey has already been done, and we do know that the health department's septic records show that it's in a place where it can easily fit on that half acre, or is on that half acre.
All right.
sounds to me like they're in compliance with everything, and it's just a little bit of housekeeping they're trying to do, make things right. So with that being said, I'll make a motion for the rezoning of number 847-22, parcel 105-35-143, to change the present A use to RR, single family rural residential zone, for the purpose of adjusting property lines.
And I'll second Supervisor Howard's motion.
All right, and I'll make that unanimous.
Okay, our second one, rezone 848-22 is a request to change the current A general land use zone to RR, single family rural residential, just as before. The zone for the purpose is new construction. The address is at the southwest corner of Robinson Ranch and Rambling Road in Thatcher, and the requester is the owner, Forrest Wright. This is a development situation. The owner will split the parcel and build homes. He could split this parcel into 3 separate half-acre parcels with this zoning, and that is what he intends to do. He was at the last meeting, and he talked to 3 different neighbors that had some concerns, none of which have showed up today. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. P&Z received 1 email about this request from Russell Walker, who did not state he was for or against. There were some questions about drainage and easements, but were not necessarily opposed to the split. The commission voted unanimously to send a favorable recommendation to you.
All right. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? And
Yeah, I just have a question.
sure, you can come right over here. And it seems rather formal, but you can just give us your name and address.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm a retired school administrator. I'm used to formal.
All right.
I'm Leslie Campos. We live at 3230 West Coyote Lane in Thatcher, and our property does share a property line with the parcel that's being split. And neighbors were at the last meeting concerned about water. We've been watching the water in that area for years and have concerns about that parcel. I'm also a real estate broker, and I've sold lots and lots of broken houses in this county over the years, and I have some concerns because of the water mitigation on that lot, that any houses built there might experience issues in the future. That's out of my hands. That's just my opinion. At the same time, we haven't seen evidence of a survey. We haven't seen any evidence that this parcel has been surveyed. We do share a property line with it. We need to know where the corner is, and we haven't seen any survey markings at all. And we are concerned about the fact that all of my clients, when they want to split land, have to do a survey, and we haven't seen evidence of one as yet. So I don't know if one is planned or one was done, it's just not recorded, but we have no markings at all of a survey.
Thank you.
I'll speak to both of those issues, if I can remember what they were. The survey issue is it's something we don't recommend anybody do until they get the zoning, because if they don't get the zoning, it's wasted money. But it is currently required to get the land split, so it will have to be surveyed, but we don't recommend that they spend that money if they don't have the zoning to do it. So that will be coming. The other question about water, I anticipated this might come up, and I asked our county engineer, Mr. Bryce, to be here, and he is here, and if he would like to address what's gone on upstream and how that's possibly handled, I'd turn the time over to him.
Sure, thank you.
Well, historically, through that area, there has been considerable flow down through that area, sometimes going over Robinson Ranch Road. Since those events have occurred, there's been a lot split upstream, which has a retention pond on it, which is designed to hold the 100-year retention. In addition, for that property upstream, the developed property upstream. In addition, up on the road just above there, there's been a concrete dip put in, which is to direct the flow that originally sometimes overflowed that channel and came down through that property onto the dam now. And so between those two mitigation efforts, there should be minimal flow down through there, but just in case, because we never know what might happen, we're going to require a drainage easement down through that property to the culvert on the road, so that'll be maintained open to, if there perchance is some overflow from that retention basin, that it will then go to the culvert and go under the road. If you have any other questions about the drainage, or does that address it, or?
Well, I'm fully aware, because of my profession, that the county does not require soil tests prior to placing a home and recommending a type of foundation for places. And I'm just very concerned about the nature of that land. We've been living there for 15 years and have watched water erode whole portions of that land for years, and are just concerned that the right foundation is not placed for these homes, because the county does not require testing in order to determine that.
I don't disagree with your concern, because
It's up to the builder.
currently that's the case. It's up to the builder, and that the foundation that's chosen for that building and the erosion and fill that's taken place, you know, we haven't monitored it, or don't, like you say, the county has the builder sign waivers concerning soils. And I know there have been multiple issues in the county based on foundation problems.
Right, is there anyone else Here on that item? Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
My name is Joe Campos.
Yeah.
I also reside at 3230 West Coyote Lane. My concern is utility easements, where this property is going to be abutting my neighbors and my own. At the address is 3220 Coyote Lane, which is my next door neighbor. And when I put my wall up, I intentionally left a good portion of my property open for this easement so that the utility could get in there, because there's a telephone pole and transformers are located right there in that corner. And if this property is subdivided and walled off, as we are informed is going to be the case, that utility easement is going to be blocked off, except through that area that I personally left open. My concern is, having lived there in that area, there are a lot of side-by-sides and these noisy things that run up and down the roads and wherever they can get into. They've gone on my property. There's children next door at 3220. And I'm concerned they're going to start racing through there when that's blocked off, walled off from that property. So I would like that answered, what's going to happen to that utility easement, and am I going to have the right to gate that off so we don't get that travel through there? I'm very concerned about that. And speaking to that, to the drainage, we've been there, 15 years, like my wife stated. And, right there at that particular point where this split is going to be, that's where all the grade runs north and south. And that's the lowest point from both ends of Robinson Ranch Road. So all that water runs to that point right there. And it used to drain into that lot, a lot of it. And it used to even come up into our cul-de-sac, which Coyote Lane is. Our neighbor, Mr. Monteith, built up a big berm because the water used to just run in from the road, off of Robinson Ranch Road right into the cul-de-sac. So we've been maintaining those washouts for years because the county doesn't address it. You need a 4x4 to get in there after it washes out for weeks. But Jeff Monteith used to take care of that for us. He's leaving. We're very concerned about that. And I'm very, very concerned about all that water that runs through from Rowley Lane all the way through our cul-de-sac and down into that low area. It's being proposed for split. And as far as the culvert, I've walked over there, I've taken a look at that culvert, and it does not run through. It runs over on top of the parcels on the east side. So, I'd just like a better study of that, because I think we're going to have a lot of water problems. And as my wife stated, myself being a realtor, we've seen a lot of broken houses because of the planning and zoning failure to look at grades or anything else like that, or foundation, soil tests. That's our concern. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Where do you want to go? I apologize that I didn't recognize you guys. You weren't at the previous meeting, the other three neighbors, and was he? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize. The three that came up here and spoke with Mr. Wright and Mr. Wright, are none of them are here. So apparently they worked their differences out, but you can go wherever you want to on this. I think Engineer Bryce And maybe the highway department could look at the size of that culvert or whether it's working properly, but other than that, I mean, I don't know where else you want to go. Go ahead.
Quick question. So although we could split it into three, is he splitting into 2 or 3?
He had room for 4, but is splitting to 3 because of the easement to the north is unusable, really.
Okay, so that first, what would be a lot's not really, won't be used. And
The north portion of it is probably going to be sold to the neighbors to the north.
Okay.
Or given to, he doesn't want to deal with anything north of Ramblin' Road. Although he owns Ramblin' Road and the area north of it, he doesn't want to deal with any of that.
So the access will be off Ramblin' Road.
There is a house currently going on the property that is accessed off of Robinson Ranch Road, the southeast corner of that property. The other 2 will come off Ramblin' Road.
All right. I'm just looking on my phone, looking at Google Earth, and what's your address again?
3230 West Coyote Lane.
And so you're just
Our back line abuts that lot.
yeah, okay. And 3220 is to the east or west of you.
Yeah, that's the second house, and that's east of us.
East.
They're east of you.
Yes.
So you're
Say we have
yeah.
an alleyway,
Yeah, in between you there.
right? So
Yeah.
that we get to that pole, because before this was proposed, the prior owners of this lot allowed there was an access there, which we always believed was a utility access, because it was gravel, and that's the way I'd see utility trucks come in.
If
Now, that's gonna go away. And with Ramblin' Roads closed off, and those neighbors, there's only about 20 feet to the north of Ramblin' Road for that other property that he's not gonna use, which he was trying to sell to. But, and the north part of that lot and the south part of Ramblin' Road is the lowest point of that area, and that's where all the water flows, and it's always flowing. As soon as it rains, we get any water, we hear all the chippers out there, Frogs,
Yeah.
the frogs
Yeah.
just start chirping away,
Yeah.
because that's where they all go.
All right.
in addressing the utility access, if that is a written easement on top of your property, you can gate it off. It is still your property, and you can gate it off. Just you'd have to make it available if the power company needed in there, but you can gate that off if it's on your property.
Okay, my biggest concern is, that was my biggest concern. The other one being that apparently, there was a low point put in by another property owner, there's a holding area for water. It's right in back of our lot. We don't have any problem with that, because there's acreage to the west of us, and I understand, that's a good deal, let's get that water behind there. But if he closes that off, or is he good, I don't know if he's planning to run his water in there or not. But there's gonna be like a 35-foot area that's.
A lot of the water that goes into that lot comes off of Ramblin' Road, not from that large parcel where you had the retention pond put in. A lot of the water still comes down Ramblin' and straight behind the Haas's house through that easement between us and onto that lot. That's where a lot of the water comes from now. It's not all what we're talking about. We watch it from down there.
So if he
There's a block wall there. Yeah. It's just concerns.
Yeah.
Just to address the wall thing, if they were to pull a permit for the wall as they're supposed to, Mr. Bryce would require that venting be in the wall in order to let water through so that it didn't go under or beside. So that should be dealt with, but that's out of my hands.
All right. Any other further questions, comments from anyone? Board members?
Steve,
Paul David, I have a question for Steve McGoy, and that is, on the application, Mr. Wright indicated that the property owner was Breadwinner, and I was wondering if that's a legal name, or because if it's not a legal name, I would not support the application until that's changed to a legal name, either an individual or a corporation.
I believe it's Breadwinner LLC, owned by Forrest Wright, who is the applicant.
Okay, so it is a legal name. Very good. Well, I just there was no LLC or LLP after it, so
I'm sorry, we probably failed to write that on there. We deal with him quite extensively, and we call him Mr. Breadwinner, and it probably did get left off.
Okay. My other question is for you, Steve. I know PNC recommended it. Based on what you've heard, what are your recommendations at this point? And then I was going to ask if our county engineer thought that the floodplain issues could be resolved with permitting and diligence by the county regarding the existing flow and allowing the existing flow to go through the pre-development flow and then capturing the rest if he thought that would solve the drainage problems.
Mr. Bryce and Mr. Wright have had a few conversations about this, but Mr. Wright does know that once he does get it split and goes to pull permits, he will have to comply with Mr. Bryce's requirements on drainage, and that will be as we do at any place in the county.
Okay, very good.
If he'd like to speak to it, you got it? Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Steve, I understand that there are concerns about the survey, but you addressed that problem that it will get surveyed if it is rezoned. And I realize we do have quite a water problem out in that area. I'm sure during the planning and zoning hearing, all this was discussed to the fullest, I hope. And the soil testing is always a concern too, but we don't have it. But my comment is the flooding and the water flow out there is just tremendous over the years. It's been changed and run in different directions, and it's an ongoing problem. And I just would say that we need to check out that culvert, and I'm sure Steve will, or he has, to make sure it's functioning properly.
I think we, based on engineering's last 2 years of work, feel confident that a lot of that has been rectified. You guys have spent a lot of money on that dip on Rowley to make sure that the stuff south of it gets into the Thatcher Dam instead of running down through there. We just have not had a good-sized storm to test it yet. And I don't think, I mean, if you want some further study or something, I don't think Forrest is in a big hurry. We could table this and deal with it later if you want to get more answers. I just don't know that. I think it's all been studied, and I think we know where we're headed. And this survey will require that he will have to show where his drainage is going to go on his survey before, and if it doesn't satisfy Mr. Bryce, he will not get a split. So,
well, these smaller lots, will they have retaining ponds on them? The smaller lots, Michael?
We've been debating that for that area because they are going to smaller lots. Challenge is that they've got the existing drainage running through there.
Right.
And whether there'll be enough area to actually retain, unless they retain within that drainage easement, which could be done. They could retain within the drainage easement, still, the drainage unit still could provide overflow capabilities even with retention in that area. That might be one way to solve that issue.
Well, he does have some hurdles to get over to make this happen, and he knows that, but he's not willing to spend the money to figure that out unless he has the zoning. That's the first step in this process.
All right, thank you. All right.
Chairman,
Yes.
and my, in bringing this to a motion, before I make a motion, I would just say it's always a balancing act between personal property rights and the rights of others as far as the quality of life, and so that's planning and zoning is always kind of a teeter-totter, but with the drainage requirements that we enacted in the last couple of years for on-site drainage retention, the vigilance, and not allowing people to put up, divert the water and concentrate the water to other properties. With your assistance, I would go ahead and make a motion to support the P&Z Commission's recommendation to allow this REZ, the rezoning, the REZ 848-.
All right, thank you.
So he did make a motion.
Yep.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a first and a second, and if there's any further discussion, now's our chance. I'll just say there in that high desert area, not in the Thatcher city limits, it's going to continue to get developed. I think that we at the county, we're going to use all the tools that we have to mitigate problems with water and things like that, like we've done with Rowley up above. That whole area behind there, behind where you live now, as you know, as you might expect, it's going to have houses on it. I think that we're going to do the best that we can to address all the things that we can, given the tools that we have, which are somewhat limited at the county. So, anyways, with that, is there any other further discussion?
No, sir. No.
I'll make that unanimous.
Thank you. Our next rezoning is 849-22. It's two large parcels off Solomon Road in south of Solomon, along the river there. Mr. Vlasis is here if he'd like to present it. The request is made to change the current A general land use to M general manufacturing for the purpose of mining sand, gravel, and creating concrete. I wish I could talk. This is about where Dos Condados Road comes off and the railroad tracks cross Solomon Road. Everything he's trying to rezone is south of Solomon Road. As you'll remember, this happened before. You may not have heard a lot about it, but the neighbors had some issues with that north of and to the west, and he's pulled that out and come to an agreement with the neighbors. I won't say none of them are here, but I will say I don't see any. I think they've got this worked out. At the planning and zoning meeting, only one neighbor, the southernmost Safford Ranch Mobile Home Park resident, was here just to make sure that we did what Mr. Vlasis had promised. And you want to talk? I'll shut up.
I'm Peter Velasquez. I represent Tri-County Materials. This process actually started almost 30 years ago when my father-in-law, Mr. Gilbert, bought the land south of the canal. And for 30 years, he attempted to buy the property out front so that eventually we knew we would move from our current location to that location. I talked to Steve and I just was gonna do all the parcels because I thought it would be a nice buffer to keep houses away, and some of the neighbors had a problem. So we went from the 4 parcels down to just 2, and that made everybody happy. The Barneys came and talked to me, and there was actually, Jerry said there was a trade done that I didn't even know about when he bought it with his father 30 years ago. So they had traded some acreage. So as far as digging and mining right on those parcels, it's more about putting our office and our plant, our equipment there. We're going to do the mining on the other parcel south of it. If you have any questions.
No.
No, I just know that you guys have worked all this out. You've diligently worked on it to satisfy everybody. So it seems like it's, okay.
All right, are there any further questions for Mr. Velasquez or for Mr. McGoy? Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Paul David, I just would note that this is the second appearance by the Velasquez family for the rezoning. And I just wanted to comment to say that this is a prime example of a responsive and good neighbor, someone who values, and this is what happens in a small area, people who are concerned about the neighbors and their initial concerns. This area needs additional aggregate production. The existing plant is there. It's just a matter of expanding it. And I just applaud Mr. Velasquez for his approach for working things out. We had a number of unhappy people last time we had this, and they are even the people from the mobile home park are not present, so that their absence, it seems like they are content with this. And so I would, unless you have comments, Mr. Chairman, I'd go ahead and make a motion. Thank Mr. Velasquez for working things out in such a great way, and I'd make a motion that we approve the rezoning.
Right.
I'll second it.
All right, unless there's any other further discussion, I'll make that unanimous.
Thank you. Our next hearing application is rezoning 850-22. This is a Bingham parcel south of Tidy Acres in Pima. The request is made to change the current A general land use to RMH for a residential manufactured home, which allows for a manufactured housing subdivision, a manufactured housing park, or an RV park. The purpose is a housing development, 2500 to 2750 North Clough Ranch Road in Pima. The requester is Paul Charette. I'll probably say that wrong, but he is here. He and his engineer are both here to speak to this. Planning and zoning staff believes this is a good use of the property and that it will be an improvement to the neighborhood. The parcel borders Pima to the north and the east, and although they have been consulted, the town is not in a position to annex nor serve with sewer at this time. No one came to speak for or against this request from the neighbors or public, and the commission voted unanimously to send you a favorable recommendation. If you guys would like to say anything, now's your chance.
My name's Paul Charette. I'm out of Tucson. I'm a small developer. I was shown this 35-acre parcel as consideration of a development, and I've looked at it, done some due diligence, and I think it's a great little project to develop. I've retained Tom. Tom is an engineer. My understanding is what you need to do is rezone from the general zoning before we can do much of any planning. We're not sure whether we're going to do an RV park, a manufactured home subdivision at this point in time, because we want to get past this hurdle first. But we're clear, or I'm clear, that I don't want to do a split. I'd like to do something better. Water's accessible, sewer is not available. I spent quite a lot of conversation with the town of Pima to try to engage them, and they're just not in a position to do anything. So this is the starting point, and looking for approval on this, and then we'll start working with planning and zoning and either developing a subdivision or a park or some combination of.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Charette?
No, I'm excited to see something like that down there. Gives a little better affordable housing to our community. That's a big right now. It's a big given we need. So that's just my comment on it.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Paul David, just briefly, I would second, I believe that Supervisor Howard just made a motion, is that correct?
No, I didn't make a motion, but I can.
Okay.
I will make a motion.
You can be the first,
You
Paul.
can be the first.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve it. I welcome Mr. Charette and his, and this is one of the first subdivisions that I will have been involved in as a supervisor, and appreciate the planned and development versus just wildcat and growth. And so I'm very appreciative and look forward to supporting this any way that we can, and pleased to make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll make that unanimous. Thank you. Best wishes.
Thank you, guys. We are finally at the one we were looking for, number 5. This is rezoning 851-22, and this is a cleanup for the most part. It's something that I really don't know what the first step in this was, but we realized that the McBrides had bought a parcel of ground with 2 existing homes and 2 RVs being rented on it, which we don't allow. We allow 1 home per parcel, so we asked them to clean this up. And they immediately got rid of the 2 RVs, but I think they intended to build they were hoping to build a 3rd residence, and that hasn't panned out for a couple of reasons. One being that the canal is too close for them to get another septic in, and sewer's not available to them. But in the midst of this, Mr. McBride succumbed to COVID, so now Mrs. McBride is stuck with this situation, and she has come to us with a plan to get rid of one of them if we'll rezone it so that she can split it and get rid of it. It'll have its own parcel. Its septic will be on its parcel, but she needs to rezone down to smaller than what she's currently zoned. The requester is Mindy McBride, and the only person who was here referenced that at the last meeting was her father, who Danny Merrill, who just was really there for support. No one from the neighborhood came to speak for or against, and the commission voted unanimously to send a favorable recommendation. It will clean up what she wasn't able to clean up. She cleaned up everything she could, but she still has two homes on a parcel, and so she needs to split it into two pieces. That will be the next step if she gets this zoning. And I don't see anybody here that wants to speak to it, but maybe there is. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't know if I need to say anything or.
If you'd like, otherwise.
I'm sorry.
If you would like to, otherwise you don't have to. Yeah, okay.
Thank you for explaining it all.
You bet. All right, any questions for Steve or any questions on this item or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve 851-22 rezone.
All right, we have a motion.
And I'll take a second that motion, and with no thanks to the planning and zoning for their efforts to assist in compliance, and thanks to the owner for being responsible, and our condolences for her loss. That is tragic. So glad to help any way we can.
Thank you, Supervisor David. Unless there's any further discussion, I'll make that unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a bid opening on our agenda, but I understand we have no bids.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We received no bids for the Sheriff's Office new 4x4 SUV. Sorry, Sheriff. I think planning and zoning, no, engineering's looking to get rid of their 1996 Tahoe, if you're interested. Yeah, you can have it back.
All right, with no bid to open, we will move on. Call to the public. Anyone signed in? Don't see anyone. With that, we are adjourned. We have we have a work session following in which we will consider raising the dollar limit for requiring purchases to go out to sealed bid. We'll have another work session discussing donation of properties to the county, and then our regular work session in which we discuss health, highways, parks, engineering, planning and zoning, roadway signage, maintenance projects and such following that.